Hi guys, I'm Hannah. I'm the talent acquisition partner here at Airship, where I look after the recruitment side of things. Before joining Airship, I only started within the games industry April this year. Prior to that, I've got 5-6 years experience in recruitment. That's what I was previously doing before joining the games industry. Over to you, Erica.
Hi, I'm Erica. I initially started my journey at university in Belgium at Digital Arts Entertainment, where I studied game graphics. And from there, I've now been working in the game industry for 6 years. I've worked at Ubisoft for a while, where I worked on titles such as The Settlers, Far Cry 6, Riders Republic. And here at Airship, I've worked on a couple of unannounced projects. Over to you, Bradley.
Hi, I'm Bradley. I'm a senior environment artist here at Airship. I started my journey after university, studying computer game modeling and animation. From there, I went to a digital marketing agency who helped build out VR projects for British Airways, Formula E, Formula One. And then I decided that as much as I love engineering, I want to get into the games industry. It's the same sort of talent pool. So I moved over to Airship to start working on AAA titles. And since then, I've been working on uh, some titles here that we can't really talk about. Over to you, Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt. So I also started my journey at university, specifically Staffordshire University in Staffordshire. And after that, I went into teaching and freelance. So mainly teaching 3D modeling and engine work at college level and then also university level. While doing that, I also did some freelance work, working for a like a theme park concepts company that work with like quite big theme parks like Alton Towers, Disney, stuff like that. Um, then after I finished teaching, I ended up coming to Airship, where I'm now a character artist and leading up some pretty cool titles. One of which just recently released, called F1 Manager 2022.
Nice. So yeah, that's a bit about us at Airship. Now we'll talk a bit more about Airship. So basically, Joe Harford, our CEO, he founded this company all the way back in 2010 in the back of his bedroom, basically, and it's grown from strength to strength. We're actually moving studios to Alderley Park in Manchester. That's actually a picture of our new studios there. In total, throughout our whole history, we've worked on over 100, I would say, guys. AAA games to date. Don't exactly know the figure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about more or less over 100, I'm told. But here are our co-development and partnerships that we work with, just to name a few. And obviously, this list will continue to increase as we go on. We value and pride ourselves, and we do have our core values on reliability, growth, innovation, ethics, passion, and quality. In Airship, we specialize in these 5 sort of departments, specifically character, grooming, concept art, props, and environment. Here are our open roles at Airship that we are currently recruiting for actively at the moment. So you've got lead environment artist, machine learning and AI engineer, lead character artist, project manager, environment artist, mid to senior levels, head of production, pre-sales, senior technical art. And those are the games that we've recently worked on, which you will probably see announced recently, like Gotham Knights, 2K Golf, FIFA 23, my absolute favorite. But yeah, we'll dive into the hiring process. So our hiring process are quite streamlined over here at Airship. It's basically you get the application stage screening process where our guys Robin and Udi will go through a set of questions just to qualify you before progressing your application through to the first stage. They'll dive right into speaking about systems that you've used, talk about your portfolio, talk about your CV a bit more detail, where you envision yourself, seeing yourself, to see whether firstly that aligns with where the position or the role that we're recruiting for aligns to. And then you would have a first stage interview with myself. Basically, it's more of a my first stage interview style is more of a casual talk with yourself to get to know you as a person, as an individual, where we would talk about your inspirations, motivations, interests outside of work. What do you like doing outside of work, just to get to know you personally as an individual. And then we would dive into a bit more on your experiences side, where you've worked at previously, how your career started, the reasons for leaving, and then we'll dive into the nitty-gritty side of things, which is like notice period, salaries, location, etc. But yeah, provided that you pass the first stage with myself, you move on to the second stage with the hiring managers, whether it be with Erica or Bradley or Matt, depending on which role it is that you're being interviewed for. But yeah, I'll let you guys take the floor.
So for character, I generally tend to look at a portfolio looking for things that are not just specifically to one style. I like to see a little bit of diversity. I think it's a good thing that you have focus. For example, if you really like realistic work, then have some realistic work. But I think it's important to also show that you can handle different styles that you're normally doing, because it shows that you can learn quickly, that you're very adaptable. So that is one of the things I personally find really important when I'm looking at a portfolio, and when I'm doing an interview with someone. I'll always ask, what your favorite work is and why that is, and also what your least favorite work is. Being able to critique your own work is really important, and showing that within an interview shows that you're generally a quite pleasant person to work with. So for me, those kind of questions are really important to ask. And I don't know if there's something that Matt maybe wants to add to this.
Well, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head. Being able to see diversity is really, really important. You should definitely cater your portfolio towards the job that you actually want to do. So if you want to do, say, like stylized characters, for example, then doing like just making loads of realistic characters and only showing realistic characters, that's obviously not going to get you a job as a stylized character artist, for example. But yeah, you should definitely cater towards what your strengths are, what you want to do. But you also need to be able to show that you can do a little bit of everything. Really, that doesn't mean you have to be like a master of all trades. So, say for example, if we were hiring for a character artist at the moment, we look for what projects we actually have in, and then we have a look at the skill sets that people have, and we kind of try and match, like, okay, so how many boxes did he tick for so many projects, for example. So we wouldn't expect you to know, say, like ZBrush, Max, and Maya, which you should know anyway if you're a character artist. But then also adding on top of that things like substance designer and all this other stuff. So, like, it's nice to know a little bit of everything, but also you don't want to be um, good at everything but master of nothing.
Yeah,
Essentially.
I think it's also really important that you're able to show that you can work in an engine, especially when you're junior. It generally means that you haven't really worked anywhere else. So showing that you're able to, for example, work in Unreal or Unity to display your character and make a shader, it just shows that you know how to handle yourself in an engine, and it will only benefit you later on learning either a proprietary engine or it just continuing on with Unreal.
Yeah, definitely. Knowing an engine is really, really, really important as far as I'm concerned, especially if you work somewhere like Airship. Um, just because you could be tasked with things like integration, for example. So understanding how to actually get something into an engine, set it up correctly, do whatever you need to, is really, really important. And as we're game artists, like, a lot of people have the art side down, but they don't have the game side down. So one thing that I really like seeing in portfolios is that someone's actually got their work in something that's real time. So Unity, Unreal, whatever. Marmoset's great for presentation, but it's also kind of lying because it's not actually real time. Okay, so being able to like get something to look to the marmoset quality inside of like Unreal, for example, is really really impressive. So
Yep.
if we can see stuff like that, then it's really big ticks for all, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if Brad maybe wants to add something about the environment side.
I mean, from the environment side of things, I look at it from a slightly different angle because seeing environments is a broader picture, so you can light a scene differently and you can tell a story with a scene with the amount of detail that's added. So something that I look for from the start is just the density of detail in a piece to say, like, if this is telling a story or leading the eye to someone that's looking at the piece to say, there's some sort of mystery on this piece, or doing what the user intended or doing what the creator intended, essentially showing it inside engine. Like you guys say, seeing your model inside Mumset is impressive, yes, but it's even more impressive to be able to walk around and have like fly through cameras inside Unreal Engine or Unity or your engine of choice. Like being an airship, we have to use a lot of engines, and having like a display that you can do this and go from one to another quite easily is always cool to see. Um, that being said, I'd also like to see work outside of like this is more in tune to juniors, but work outside of university. Um, Something that I look for is if you're passionate about working in the games industry, then you're probably you should be doing this outside of university, putting together little models or little scenes to say, oh, I wanted to try using SpeedTree, or oh, I wanted to try using Houdini. You might not even need to use Houdini in your current role or role you're going into, but it's nice to see that you have the passion and want to learn about that. And that's something I always look for. Just to, even when chatting to you, I can tell you're passionate about the role you're applying for, but showing that in your work, saying I did this as a personal project for myself to push myself is something I always look for. Um, Going on from that, really boring one, but I like to see LODs on stuff if LODs are required, because they are important. As much as they don't look pretty, they are important from like the game's building process. I'd also like to say that rendering scenes within V-Ray and all this is nice. You can make something look amazingly pretty, but again, back to engine is something again I'd like to look at. But yeah, that's it from my side. I think I'll probably think of something in about 5 minutes time when it's completely irrelevant. But yeah,
And
that's
I think as well, just to add on into that, I mean, one thing in common, whether it's a first stage or a second stage interview, guys, is that I personally look for confidence. I definitely look for, that's why I ask personal questions like what inspires you, what motivates you, because as an artist, you're continuously, creating stuff. So passion and drive has to be there. That it has to be there for me when I'm interviewing someone. And it's good to see the confidence that you have and the belief that you have in yourself, in your work, because it will show across in the interview. So never be shy. I know some people they're quite shy and down to earth, and they don't give themselves enough credit for the work that they do. So don't shy away from your projects or your passions. It might be something little to you, but to us on the other hand, who's like listening to it, we can actually listen to your passion and see that drive as an artist, which I think is quite important as well.
yep, I'd agree.
Cool. And in terms of like portfolios, guys, do you have any further tips and tricks to add into? I can see there's a few questions there,
Yeah.
which we'll cover shortly, but do you guys want to give any more suggestions to portfolios? I know Matt touched on it earlier briefly.
Yeah, I think it's just really important to show that you can work in an engine. So Unreal is generally the main one that is used. So always make sure that, especially if you're starting out after university, that you have at least one piece that is real time within Unreal so that you can show that off and that you can show the fact that you can actually work in an engine, but also show diversity in your portfolio. Yes, have a focus, but show at least one piece where you can see, yes, I can also learn different things.
Yeah, I'd also add to that that uh, seeing the blender donut 1,000 times isn't unique. And having a bit of unique creativity about your portfolio also helps. Something I'd just throw in there because the amount of times I've seen it, hundreds of times, and it's impressive the first time, but then
One
after that,
thing that is also quite good to show on your portfolio is breakdowns and guides. It generally shows that you're a team player, that you're happy to teach other people and also share what you have learned. Because sometimes you will work with people that have learned something really cool and they don't want to share it, but that is not really a team player asset that you want within your company. So that is a really important thing to sometimes show, that if you've learned something new, then just share what you've been doing.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'd agree.
yeah. Kind of going on from what Brad and Erica have been saying. In terms of things you show on your portfolio as well, like say with like the donut being a perfect example. It's like if you're gonna show something that's from a tutorial, like make it your own, 100%. It's all good like following tutorials, like I do it all the time, but I always kind of adapt it into my own thing. So say if I saw a tutorial for, I don't know, rendering like a specific head inside a ZBrush or something, I'd be like, okay, cool, but I take the knowledge from that and apply it to my own stuff instead of just going like, okay, I'm going to do exactly what's here and it's going to look exactly the same as what's in this tutorial. Just because it's like, okay, well, you've shown that you can like follow step by step, but you haven't shown how you can kind of use that to your own devices pretty much. So if you are going to use tutorials, which you all should anyway, YouTube is amazing, but there is other things as well, obviously. Just make them your own, make them unique, show that you can take some information and expand upon it, because a lot of our work, we get given information from clients about specific things that they want us to do, and it's never going to work the same every time, and you're always going to run into issues with it. So you need to be able to adapt it really quickly to get it to do exactly what you want it to do on the fly. So yeah, being incredibly adaptable and being able to display that is really, really important, especially for what we do, because we're literally all over the shop with everything.
Yep.
Cool. I can see there's quite a lot of questions there, but yeah, just to share a bit about something what our clients say about us. We've worked with Halo and FIFA recently, and also Wilder Gates. But yeah, in summary, we strive on teamwork. I think one thing about Airship's culture I can say is that we're a very close knit team. I hear artists bouncing ideas off each other all the time, and if there's anything where I need help on the talent acquisition side, the guys are not shy away from jumping in and pitching in. So I think it's quite fair for me to say that our culture is quite a close-knit team where we work. It's quite a dynamic, close-knit team where we work in a innovative and creative way. Wouldn't you agree, guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Cool. So shall we dive straight into the questions then? Let me have a look. So the first question from Felix: how to get a junior position in a studio? The vast majority of open positions on studio websites ask for senior level. Do you want to take the floor, guys?
So for a junior position, I know that the market is generally quite competitive and it can be really hard to find a job within the industry. But one thing that is really important is networking. And this can be, joining in courses online like Beyond Extend or other things that exist like that, because you're creating a community and you get to know people within the industry. And if you get close to someone, they might be like, hey, I've got a position open. Do you maybe want to apply for it? But also sometimes you could reach out to someone on ArtStation or LinkedIn and obviously send them a message and be like, hey, this artwork is really great. I'm learning something. Would you mind maybe giving me some feedback? Stuff like that is really important, and it will help you getting in the industry, but also again, it's showing those points that we discussed earlier, being able to show that you can work in an engine, being able to show that you have diversity on your portfolio will basically mark you above all the other things
Yeah.
of the other portfolios that we get in.
Yeah.
I've got one for Brett here. Trying to apply for a remote job as a 3D environment junior artist position. Can you please elaborate on expectations like CV, qualification, portfolios, etc.?
Yeah, so we hire remote people quite easily. There's no bias between remote, on-site, or even hybrid. So, sorry, can you repeat the question?
So can you please elaborate on expectations like CV, qualification, and portfolio?
So for a junior, I mean, there's no expectations apart from going out your way to make good talent, good work, putting all your effort into that work, and showing that you're uh, more unique and like finding creative ways to get my attention is the best way to get seen. Um, that being because I get LinkedIn messages all the time, and I'm sure other people do in this call. Like, but there's some that will go out their way to show they have personality in them LinkedIn messages, even if it's just tone or showing their work in a creative way, putting like frames around stuff, and just making it's hard to describe because it's so like case by case, but making your portfolio look different and unique would be one of the reasons which will catch my eye, and then I'm more likely to click into it. Essentially, you're attempting to clickbait me into looking at your amazing work.
It's how they market themselves, isn't it? If you take pride in your work and whatnot, it will show in your portfolio. And it's
Yeah.
just, it goes down to how you market yourself, how you market your work.
Following
Which
on
also,
from like Erica's point, like the Meetup, I used to use Meetup all the time. It's an online app, and you go to events where it's just loads of other artists just chatting away, and that is how I've met some of the best and most talented artists just by going to games events like that. And it's easy to chat to someone, and then you'll be like, oh, I actually want to hire or work with you because you're so nice to get on with, as long
yeah,
as your work falls in line.
definitely. I mean, another tip on CVs, how your CV should look like, guys. Just to answer that question as well. Um, don't write paragraphs. Please do not write paragraphs. It's not an essay that you are, applying for a job. You want to get to the point, put as much detail as possible, but get to the point. You don't need to write a whole story around how you did X, Y, and Z kind of thing. Bullet point it, make your CV look neat, ensure that you have your date stamped there. Always start your CV as well with present, and then work your way down to pass. I see some CVs where they've got dates all jumbled up and it's just one big mess. That's another way to not get really noticed, unless you have someone like myself really focusing on CVs. But yeah, that might be another reason why you might not be getting responses back from employers when you're applying for jobs. So make sure that a quick snippet of yourself, highlight the tools that you've worked on. I think the tools experience wise is very important. And then when it comes to your your experiences, make sure you start from present to past, and make sure you have your title, the company that you work on, the date, whether it's like August 2021 to present or whichever it is, and then bullet point your CV all the way down, and then start with your qualifications afterwards. It doesn't have to be fluffy. It doesn't have to be all 5,000 word essays. And it goes into the next question, which is from Alessio. How important is the cover letter versus the portfolio? I would say the portfolio is more important than the cover letter, because 9 times out of 10, I'll be honest and I'll hold my hand up. I don't read cover letters.
do.
I
No,
don't
no,
read long
it's literally like
messages.
a five. I look at the portfolio first, and then
Yeah.
if it's a really strong portfolio, then I'll go back and read the cover letter.
Yeah.
I'd even say the same for the previous question about qualifications.
Yeah.
Qualifications great to have. I like seeing qualifications. It's nice. Not a be all and end all. If your work's amazing, I mean,
I
you can
think
say a lot about yourself, but
I think having a CV is quite important, though, especially the longer that you are in the industry. It
yeah,
sometimes means that you have
Absolutely.
less to share, and also you'll be taking on more leadership responsibilities, which means you're not sharing as much artwork as juniors and intermediates are. So having that CV is quite important to show, like, hey, look at all like the titles I've worked on, look at all the engines like I've worked with. So it is important. The cover letter, not so much, because it's more you just talking about how you are as a person, but we'll see how you are as a person in the interview.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 9 times out of 10, I don't even read because if you can picture myself in a position, I deal with hundreds of applications on a daily basis, weekly basis. I don't have time to sit there and read through cover letters. That's just myself personally. I rather go through the highlighted bullet points of your CV, go through it. I'll go through first, like Brad says, your portfolio, and then I'll look at your CV. Okay, let's see how many years experience you've got. And 9 times out of 10 as well, the hiring managers, I just sent the portfolios over to them to see on their take and whatnot. So moving on to the next question. Am I lowering my chances of getting hired by only specializing in character concept art? And that question disappeared.
it's gone.
And limiting my portfolio to character concept art.
No, if that's what you want to do.
I disagree with that, mainly because concept art is really hard to get into. It's like one of the hardest ones to get into. So if that is your focus, I would more also do environment pieces, get in as a concept artist, get that first bit of experience, and then start specializing. So your end goal will be to do exactly what you want, but sometimes you kind of have to make a sacrifice at the start if you're really struggling to find a job.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll agree with Erica on that one. To be fair, um, yeah, concept art is probably the hardest thing to get into because it is incredibly competitive, and usually, like, people get concept art jobs, and then that's what they're doing for the rest of their life. So the job never becomes vacant ever again. Um, and there's also a lot of freelance concept artists around, so yeah, it's very, very, very competitive. Say obviously, if that's what your main focus is and what you want to do, then obviously focus on doing that. But if you are at the points where it's like, I just want a job doing concept art, then yeah, maybe expand your portfolio a little bit more so you do a bit more stuff. But yeah.
And the next one is following into a portfolio. Actually, what do you look for in a portfolio for UX or UI designers? What stands out when you think of UX designers for gamers versus other tech careers?
Oh, that's a good one.
I think this one might be quite hard for us to answer since we don't really have any UI UX at Airship at the moment. Just from my previous experience with other companies, I think it's more being able to show that you can make a UI that people like playing, showing that like you can do that sort of stuff, or thinking of like how would you break down a controller when you're doing a game. So I think that is generally how people show like, hey, I can do UX.
Mm,
Yeah,
I would, yeah,
understanding the psychology behind it all is
Yeah.
is quite important, and it needs to be one of those things where you don't have to actually explain the psychology behind it. Like, it should just be like, oh yeah, of course that's like that because of that. Um, Seeing working UIs as well is actually quite nice. This is another good thing for like Unreal, because setting up like UI widgets is really easy. Um, in terms of like actually doing, so like the art side of UI design, that kind of comes under like the concept art thing as well, where it's quite hard to get into because it's essentially concept art pretty much. It comes into like a similar thing. um but yeah, like, just being able to see straight away that you obviously understand why X is Y and it equals Z. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of thing that
yeah.
we need to
Cool.
see.
The next question, do you guys provide any art tests or opportunities for feedback on our artwork? I'm sure we have done that
Art
before,
Yeah,
haven't we,
tests
Brad?
we've definitely done before.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we send out art tests in cases where we think you're a really nice person and like your art looks really good, but there's been like no real breakdown on your art. So you said, I've made this piece, this is what I've done, and then you've explained how you've made it. But it's like, let's just double check, sometimes. And so sometimes we send you a paid art test. Well, we will.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah, Bradley, Matt, and Erica. We need to move on with it's fantastic talk. There's a lot of questions. If you could please stay and answer those questions in the chat, that would be great. Otherwise, thank you so much. And thank you very much, everyone, for
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.